My name is Z. I've been with Youth Action Hub here we've been going for about a year, and as everyone here knows, our big thing is working to end youth homelessness. Yeah. So yeah, our title is Improving Young People's Access to Information and Services in Connecticut, because we're fun. Next. Alright, so I'm starting off with just some basic introductions as to how we got started, a little bit about us and how we got the demographics of our study, and then we're going to move into the methodology of the study and the results of it. Finally, we're going to finish out with our recommendations that we've made over the past year or so. So, purpose of this presentation, pretty straightforward. Like I said earlier, we're all working to end youth homelessness here, and this is our contribution to it. So we are a part of the Institute for Community Research. We've been working together since, I believe, September of last year or so. Everyone who is part of the Youth Action Hub we are all people who have dealt with some form of housing instability or homelessness in the past. I guess it's a way of using the target demographic as part of the research itself. So we're all between 16 and 24. Now the big focuses of our study is twofold. One, we had to figure out what was keeping young people from accessing services, what barriers they met, how it affected them, and then the second part of that is remedying it. How do we remove those barriers? How do we increase our efficacy? And how can we move forward? So this here is how all of us know the 211 system is supposed to work. It's supposed to work in a really simplistic fashion. People are in help, who need help, they call 211, and they get the information and referrals they need, they get scheduled assessments if they need those, and everyone goes home and has a great night. That's not how it ended up working, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first, a little bit as to our methodology and how we did what we did, which is that we had a mixed methods approach. We took both a qualitative and a quantitative stance on it. We ran 6 different focus groups with participants ranging between 3 and like 8 or 9 people in them. And we did a survey with, we have 141 people?
64.
164 people. It was a short online 15-minute survey, which is where we got most of our quantitative data from. And that's going to be, I guess, the larger focus here today in this presentation. All right, so demographics-wise, we had a total amount of people of 191 in our study, 164 through the survey. And this is important. We noticed that 43% of our study dealt with being unstably housed. So we feel pretty confident in the results that we have that they do actually cater to the needs of unstably housed youth because they make up such a large percentage of our study. Pretty standard breakdown of ethnicity here. A third of people were Caucasian or white, nearly a third identified as Latino, nearly a fifth Black or African American, and then about 16% were multiracial. We are based in Hartford, so most of our people came from Hartford. We got a number of people from the New Haven, Litchfield, and Fairfield counties. Our survey is not representative of Connecticut as a whole. So we got very few people from the Talam and the Wyndham counties and far out northeast. There's really only cows there anyway. But we are always looking to expand our research in the upcoming years to get more of a sample study to do more surveys out in those areas. Most of our people were under the age of 18. A plurality of our sample were 14 to 17. Next highest being 21 to 24, people over the age of 21, and then the 18 to 20 group is where we have the least representation, coming in at nearly a quarter. As far as gender goes, we have a mostly pretty even split, 50, 46, and 4 of male, female, and gender non-conforming, respectively. And this is pretty much everything else we have. Notice that most of our study were students. We did a lot of work with high school students in particular. Almost half of them had some kind of DCF involvement, which could range it from anything between DCF just having scheduled talks with the family, or going to up until adoption, and anywhere in between. A little over a third of our study was part of the queer community, and about a fifth of them dealt with the justice system, either as the juvenile justice or the adult form of the criminal justice system, and a little over 10, close to an eighth of our sample, has our young parents. And we're going to move on to the results now. That's a little bit of an introduction to our study. Thanks.
I don't have the same gift for projection as Z does. So the next section of our presentation here is going to be about the results. We had 3 major findings in our results that we boiled down here to be proactive, personalized and caring, and responsive. So the survey results indicated that many young people are not even aware of 211. 54% of our entire sample, as far as the survey is concerned, were not aware of 211.
So projecting, yes. It's just a little funky there. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. So many young people are also likely to use other means to get help before using helplines. They'll go to their schools, community centers, libraries, and health clinics in relatively equal amounts. Some of the other ways that youth reach out for help are through the internet, especially social media, word of mouth with family, friends, people that they know, and then only 18% said that they would use a helpline. As to continue the last point, they don't use helplines to get information or help when they need it. 80% of participants were aware of at least one helpline, and 35% who had known of at least one helpline reported that they have actually used a helpline to get information, counseling, or referral to services, whereas 42% of participants who were not aware of any helplines reported that they would use a helpline if they so needed. Youth also cited that they would hesitate to use a helpline because they lack knowledge about helplines or don't feel comfortable asking for help. And this is just the breakdown of the top 5 reasons why they would hesitate. That they don't know what they can do to help. One participant in a focus group said, "I thought 211 was set up for food. I never knew it was more than that. I'm used to calling them to find doctors, stuff that's in the area that can help. I never knew they were more than a small little thing." They also didn't feel comfortable asking for help, didn't want to burden others, didn't want to talk to somebody that they didn't know, and they don't know what helplines exist or how to access them. Now, one preconceived notion that a lot of folks had about this study, an expected result from folks, was that youth didn't like to use the phone. And we probed about this in our survey, and we found that 85% of participants actually said that they were likely to call to get information or help. The problem with the service is that they did not like the way it was set up. One of our participants in a focus group said, "It's not the phone that makes 211 inaccessible, it's the system that's set up." As you can see, these are the modes of communication the young people would prefer to use to get information and referrals. And calling is actually the highest percentage. Under that, they would like to search a website using Google or some other kinds of search engine. Email, social media like Facebook, Twitter, and then through text, a physical location at a whopping 70%, as well as using an app or a chat or IM service. So in order to create a proactive system, we would have to reach out to young people in places where they're at, use communication channels that young people use, such as Facebook or email, and use Facebook to reach young people. Facebook is used by 76% of our participants. One focus group said, a lot of teenagers go on Facebook. 211 could post ads on Facebook. The second facet that we found most important in our study was that youth wanted a system that was personalized and caring. Now, this is a particularly notable thing because this is something that came up naturally in our focus groups without any kind of prompting or any kinds of questions asked specifically about it. It came up naturally in all 6 of our focus groups. So youth said that they wanted a face-to-face connection or physical place to go, as well as staff that are relatable, and to have the ability to talk to the same staff consistently, as well as have an ounce of guidance and support throughout their time trying to receive help. Some of the quotes here just say that folks wanted to be able to see who they were talking to, wanted to be able to make eye contact, as well as saying that they didn't want to talk over the phone because they feel it's not going to help. It would actually be better to see the person. And some felt comfortable doing both, but they felt like if they could go in person, they could actually be heard. And the young people also wanted staff that are relatable, somebody who they said can relate with them even a little bit. That makes a huge difference for them. And to be able to talk to people that went through what they're going through and have experienced it, somebody who has a close one or they themselves have experienced some kind of housing instability or hard time. Young people said that they prefer to talk. 56% said a knowledgeable adult, 42% said a knowledgeable peer, and then the smallest number of people said that they, 21%, said that they were okay talking with someone they do not know. They also wanted to be able to talk to the same staff consistently, these same staff that they can relate to and be able to draw comparisons to. They wanted to be able to talk to the same person more than once. They felt like they couldn't trust who they were talking to. Already it was difficult for them not being able to have a physical location. They don't want to go through multiple people. It's re-traumatizing. A lot of folks said that having to retell their story, which is already hard enough, over and over again to new people became very demoralizing. And they also said that they wanted more guidance and support. What I mean by guidance and support is more than just information, but making sure that the information is received, understood, and followed up with. Making sure that youth know where to go, know how to do what they need to do when they get there, and have somebody at the end of the day making sure that they did it and they did it right. Some of our focus group participants said that they want someone to sit there and explain to them and basically guide me. Okay, when you go there, this is what you're going to ask for. Someone who can actually help you change. The final aspect that we felt was most notable in our study was that youth wanted a system that was responsive. So a system that could be considered to be responsive, as defined by youth, is one that responds immediately and quickly, but also follows up after interaction with a young person and removes as many barriers as possible to accessing housing services such as transportation, language, discrimination, and documentation requirements. Some of the youth said about following up that simple things like you want them to call back when they tell you they're going to call back. I'm waiting there, nothing. And also, 211 doesn't follow up with you to make sure that you got help, made sure you're okay, or call you later on and like, are you good, or something like that, to make sure that your situation is at least better than what it was a few hours ago when they called. So that's the results section. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Natalie and Angel to talk about our summary of findings as well as our recommendations.
So before we get to our recommendations, I wanted to do a recap of how the 211 system is designed to work, as we showed earlier. Here we have a flowchart of what we showed earlier. Young people who need help, they call 211 or go on their website, and then they get information or schedule assessments if they need housing. The youth who we talked to and who took our surveys told us that there are various barriers and gaps to the system that they've encountered. We've designed some more aspects of it here, beginning with that, as Artemis was saying, only 54% of people were aware of 211, and many people turned to other places, to the next one, that they're more familiar with. I think 36% wanted to go to their schools. And I remember during the focus groups, people were saying that people went to their schools a lot, but they were not really well equipped to help them with that. Places like school, teachers, counselors, friends and family, community centers, libraries. These are places that are more familiar to youth, more comfortable to youth, kind of hitting at that personalized and aspect, kind of personalized and caring kind of aspect. But unfortunately, these places are not adequately equipped to help youth with housing, especially in the long term, only providing maybe temporary help. So most likely they're unable to find help. And because there's a lack of awareness of 211, they're also not able to properly do a referral to 211. So youth have to go through the 211 system. And that's difficult, as we said. Many people are not aware of 211, and many people do not like calling 211 of the youth. In the next slide, there are some reasons why youth don't like to use 211, because of lack of awareness, because it feels impersonal, again, the personalized and caring kind of aspect, because it's impersonal and it's kind of like one thing where you call. It's hard to trust, and it's hard to have to retell their story over and over. Especially with a system where they have to call, tell their story, go to one place, tell their story, get referred to another place, and so on and so on. And so people prefer to talk to the same person. And youth said that there was a lack of follow-up. So it wasn't really, youth didn't really get verified that this worked, or that they got the help that they needed, or if they needed more help with things. So it was just like you call, you get information, and you go to the place. And then if you need more information, you call 211 again. So they said that they would definitely love more follow-up, because that would be very important to making sure that they got the help that they needed, and so that 211 can know what works and what doesn't work. In the next slide, we're just going to show, so youth generally get information, referrals, schedule assessment, and they go to these places. But like I was saying, there isn't really a follow-up to show, was help received, yes or no? So youth have to go back to calling 211 again, having to retell their story, and having to go through the process again, which is difficult for a youth in crisis. Now, Angel is going to talk to you about some of the recommendations that came from the data and from the youth into filling these gaps and barriers.
Can everyone hear me okay? Not a microphone person either. So since we gone through how the system is supposed to work, and then we gone through how you've said it actually works, now we want to go over some recommendations that would make it more successful for youth to actually get through the system and get the help that they need. So when youth who don't need help, we already know that a lot of them aren't aware of 211, so they go to these other access points. So our first recommendation would be to increase, access to these alternate points so they are better equipped to get the help that they need. So we know that youth are going to schools, so they're talking to teachers, counselors, and the Milliken Evento liaisons, which are the point people at each school to help with youth that are facing homelessness. We also know that they go on the internet and Google and go to community centers. So if we were able to equip these schools, these community centers, and all these other places that youth already go to with the resources that they need, this would increase the access points that they are able to go to. So they don't only have to go to 211. They can, or if they go to these schools and they have to go through 211, these schools know that, okay, this person's homeless, so they have to contact 211, or they have to contact this person. We know about a few resources, so we can help them. So they're better equipped. Also, on the internet, when you Google homelessness or need housing, nothing pops up about 211, just other ads and stuff. So it would be better to increase web presence for 211 so they actually can find it when they Google it. All these different techniques would be also go into our second recommendation to raise awareness. So once you help the schools, the community centers, and places like the internet get better equipped to help these youth and know about these services, then you also have a raised awareness. So now for the youth who do contact 211 and they call or go to the website, we recommend to have a youth specialist team. This youth specialist team would be a team of people who have experience working with youth and are able to be more compassionate or better to guide them through what the steps that they need to take. These staff youth asked to be more relatable, someone who's gone through similar things that they have that can understand their situation. The youth also said that it would be better to have bios so that youth would know who they were talking to, so they can go on the website and know that the person that they're talking to on the other side of the phone has done this and that they're actually trustable. This would also help with having youth speak to the same person so they don't have to keep retelling their stories and going through the same experience every time they call 211. They would be redirected back to the same person. So after the youth specialist team helps them schedule an assessment if they need housing, they would get connected with a youth navigator, which is our next recommendation. This youth navigator would meet with the youth and create a personalized plan with the youth for their next steps. So instead of just, you have an assessment and a few weeks and stuff and everything for maybe getting a shelter or maybe getting something, they actually come up with the next steps. Okay, so where do you want to be in a week? Where do you want to be in a month and stuff? We don't want to just find you a place to stay tonight. We want to actually get you back somewhere. So these people, this youth navigator, would actually be a compassionate person who's trustable, who's can guide them and tell them or help them create the next steps for them. After that, they would get connected to information and referrals, which goes into our fourth recommendation, to expand crisis intervention, and which would help us create street outreach teams. We also want to utilize EMPS, which is the Emergency Mobile Psychiatric Service. Took me a while to remember that. And HOT, the Homeless Outreach Team. So these are two things that are already exist and that could be utilized to not only increase transportation issues, but also meet youth where they're at. Youth said they want something that's more responsive and more proactive. So instead of waiting until the problem occurs, go out into the streets and let the youth know that there's people out here to help and raise this awareness that people are trying to help and this is where you go to when this situation occurs. So then this leads us into our last recommendation, which is to increase follow-up. So after you go through the entire system and you either get the help you received or you did not, 211 would have a follow-up. And so even if you don't get the help you need, of course, with this follow-up system, youth navigators would be like the key to helping the youth through the situation. So once they get this follow-up and they know that the youth did not get the help that they need, they are able to create the next steps so that the youth can go back and get the help that they need, get the follow-up, and we know that the system was successful for the youth. Oh, and just to reiterate, these are the 5 recommendations that I had stated through the flow chart. We wanted to increase points of access, wanted to raise awareness of 211, create a 211 youth specialist team, expand crisis intervention services, and to create a youth navigator position.
I just also wanted to add that we have been working with 211 to implement some of these changes. And we're working on a communications plan, and we're working to improve their youth portal on the website. We also wanted to thank Melville for funding our work. It's been like a great experience, and we hope to create more data like this in the future.
Yes. Thank you.